So if I'm a freelancer and I'm doing work for Global ID, I did, let's say, a brochure design, that I'm able to record a short voice command in my WhatsApp Messenger, and I can say, create an invoice for Global ID for brochure design for 200 euros. And our AI on the back would understand that that phrase actually means create a money request, create an invoice. It would create a unique identifier, would understand what the memo of the invoice should be, what the amount, what's the currency, and create a QR code that you can either show to the person or just send a link to pay. There is no platform right now that can service it that fast and that professionally.
Hey folks, welcome to the Global ID podcast. I have Elliot Goykhman today from ZELF. I'm going to dive right in. I have to say that ZELF is a company that really caught my attention. I love payments. I love identity. I love things that are fast and simple. And Elliot, you knocked it out of the park with me. Tell us about ZELF and tell us a little bit about yourself and your background. So let me just turn it over to you.
Thank you. So first of all, Greg, thank you very much for having me on the podcast. Really appreciate it. And obviously with the breadth of experience that you have to actually be excited about what we do is actually a compliment. So to explain the concept of payments and messengers is pretty simple. I mean, everybody can visualize it, can understand it. That idea was floated around for probably many years. Some companies try to do that. Majority unsuccessfully. I think the best example so far is WeChat Pay, is the payment mechanism in China in messengers. But I'd say that we are the first solution of that kind that was able to integrate it omni-channel, meaning multiple messengers where people in real time are able to get the debit card added to Apple Pay, Google Pay, or Samsung Pay and use it right away. So that's the instant part, and no app, no download, no installation solution that is really instant. So, my background comes predominantly from the US and European banks. In the US, it was mostly brokerage and really big corporate banks like Deutsche Bank, BNP Paribas, Barclays Capital, especially their brokerage divisions in the States. But in Europe, it was mostly consumer banks and consumer banking, and that's where I got the idea of actually building a lighter experience for people, which would also, and that's really the important part for the bottom line of the company, that it would also save costs on operation by not printing the plastic cards, by not making the native apps for iOS, Androids, and saving millions of dollars actually in just development costs, and doing that in what they call embedded finance.
And I understand, and my first experience with you is I actually signed up and got a ZELF account and ZELF card, and I did it in WhatsApp, not even in text messaging. And I didn't really know that there was a front door or a back door that developers could really build apps on WhatsApp. So give me a little bit of a heads up there, because I was astounded. I thought that was a closed shop.
Actually, it used to be a closed shop for a long period of time, and we are, I think, the first financial technology company that actually successfully integrated with WhatsApp API. We were in their beta program, then we got access to it. Right now, there is a process that Facebook goes through to actually vet you into the program, where you have to really prove your credentials. Every message that you're sending on WhatsApp platform is really has to be approved in terms of the templates that have to be pre-approved by WhatsApp. So there is a very rigorous process, and we have gotten the Facebook and WhatsApp verified check marks on our chatbots, which means that we are authentic representative of the brand, and which also helps fighting various copycats and fraudsters. So it used to be closed loop system, but as WhatsApp and Facebook started integrating tighter, they tried they're in the process of really building an encompassing ecosystem that allows businesses to communicate to their clients through WhatsApp, Facebook, and soon Instagram platform. So, and that really allows the embedded experience for the communication of the brand, and in our case, it's a neobank, to the consumer.
And so, I mean, the other thing I was really surprised was just it took, I mean, really just a minute. Well, I don't know what you've stopwatched it at to basically set up and establish an account. I haven't experienced anything like that since my early days at Square when we made it, something that you could stopwatch to basically become a merchant and take cards. But just talk a little bit about that process and how long it takes and how few steps there are and how you really shortcutted that process down
Mhm.
so that people could get going with a financial account inside a messaging system, which I think people take for granted in China, but in the rest of the world, maybe in Kenya, but besides those kind of exceptions, this is actually something kind of new to the world, as I understand it.
You're absolutely right. When you go to a lot of countries, there is no go-to solution for P2P sending of the money. In the US, it's very fragmented. Some people would say send money through Venmo, somebody through PayPal, somebody through ZELF. So there is no like an equivalent of M-Pesa that you're probably referring to in Kenya or a WeChat Pay in China, which pretty much anybody has and makes it very simple to send and receive money. Um, our commitment and our pitch was always like under 30 seconds from start to finish to get a banking account and to get a card, which in itself is very impressive. And we in our admin interface, we actually have an indicator of how long on average it actually has been for the last, let's say, 50 cards. And recently it was under 10 seconds. So the process is we have re-engineered the business process of actually opening an account, because most of jurisdictions, they have special provision for low value payment instruments. And those are prepaid cards, those are anonymous e-money accounts, where for a limited account, you're allowed not to do KYC right away. You're allowed to get a limited account. And in our case, launching in France, it was 150 euros, but which for Gen Z, our target audience, is a perfect place to start. So we're getting them the card. The only thing that they have to do is they have to verify their phone number with a one-time password sent to the phone number, enter their first and last name, and then they're ready to get their own IBAN account and their MasterCard virtual card.
So these IBAN, this implies that there's a real bank account behind each account, not a shared pooled account.
That is correct. That is correct.
And you're doing that in France. And what bank, or how do you, just tell us more, and why France? I mean, of all places, that France is usually, like, when you think of an innovative new launch, this is probably my, American centric. I love to go to France for everything but innovation. I go there because of the croissant, and that really very little changes in France. And so here we have a very innovative, and you don't sound French to me. So
right,
this raises all the more mystery of why France.
Right, not French, American. And what happens is Europe has been on the forefront of the legislature for actually making access to various bank as service platform more uniform. So the PSD2 legislation that came out in Europe several years ago really paved the way for a lot of bank as a service platforms popping up. I mean, we all know about Wirecard and the disaster that it was in the end, but there were a lot of competitors of Wirecard. There is Rails Bank in UK, there is Solaris Bank in Germany that is very well known, and there is Trésor, the company in France. And when we were starting out, when we were actually choosing a partner, which was over 2 years ago, we had a specific set of requirements, because since we do not have an app and we do not have a plastic card, it means that the delivery card had to be virtual. So it means that the partner had to be able to deliver the card virtually. And since you're giving a person a virtual card, how would they pay offline? It means that the company would have to support Apple Pay and Google Pay. And it just so happened that at that point of time, neither Rails Bank nor Solaris had the support for Apple Pay and Google Pay. So out of the established players, and especially with Trésor being bought by Société Générale and having very strong support of France's one of the top three banks, we had confidence that not only they will have the support structure in place, and it wouldn't be like a Wirecard. The Wirecard disaster happened later, but we knew that it had to be a company that has a strong back. So that's how we chose France. And also, it was actually a conscious decision not to go to UK, because as you're saying, that let's say that the market is less innovative, but for example, the UK market would be a red ocean at that point of time. And for us, especially with the Gen Z focus, France would be a blue ocean.
Interesting. So you mentioned the 100, I guess it's 150 euro limit. What happens when people get to 150 euros? Is there a step up in KYC, or what happens so people can keep using their account?
That's right. You're actually the first person that I'm publicly sharing that with. Today we launched the new upgraded KYC process, where the person immediately upon onboarding or reaching that limit are given an option to pass KYC. Either they will have to use, in gaming terminology, a cooldown. Basically, they will have to wait till another sort of cycle happens and their 150 limit resets, or they're able to pass KYC and get their limit up to 10,000 euros, which is probably more than any reasonable Gen Z would want.
And so is that KYC process like submitting a government ID and they take photos on the front and the back?
Exactly. And there is also a liveness test that makes sure that you are not using a picture, or that you are not actually trying to perpetrate fraud. They actually see that it's a live person. They're trying on the back to match the ID of the picture on the ID with the actual face of the person being on the video feed.
And how do people get money into and out of their ZELF accounts?
So since I mentioned the IBAN account, which is real banking account that is linked to that card, there are two ways of doing that. One is that you in Europe, you just use that long banking long account identifier. You provide it to any of your friends or your parents. Let's say if you're Gen Z and you're saying, Dad, here's my account. Now send me my allowance. Do not give it to me in cash, but send it to my card. So that's an option number one. It takes the time varies. It depends on the bank in Europe. It can take up to 2 or 3 business days. But what we have done, and that's again a little bit part of our business model, we said that we provide a free way to top up through IBAN account, or we provide a paid service of P2P, which is from one card to another, a transfer using basically internet acquiring. So since for us, it's also paid service that we are paying to a third party to actually do the debiting in one card and crediting the wallet of the customer. In this particular case, it's a small percentage that we charge for this, but the customer gets the money into account immediately. So there are 2 ways of getting money into account right now.
And talk a little bit about, we've had the pandemic, people using contactless payments or just paying from their phone. What's the state of acceptance of Apple Pay and the equivalent with Google in Europe right now? Where's that going? Because I guess everyone here is going to be paying, if they're a ZELF user, are going to be paying using their phone because there's no physical card. So it's not only contactless, it's an Apple Pay level of contactless. Is that correct?
Apple Pay or Google Pay, you're absolutely correct. And it has been on the rise. It has been already at a very high level compared to the US, because in the US, because the interchange, and I hope that we are not boring your podcast audience, but in the US, the interchange, which is the percentage that the card issuer gets from each transaction, is not regulated. I mean, there's probably a cap of some sort, but there is no regulator required amount that has to be the percentage. In Europe, it's actually pretty low. It's at 0.2%. That's why there are not that many loyalty programs. There are not that many cashback programs that are based, because the issuer just doesn't have much revenue coming from that. And in the US, it was a little bit different, that since that interchange is not regulated, that the merchant is losing more. And also the Apple Pay tax a little bit percentage on top of that. So because of that, in the US, a lot of merchants were reluctant to actually take the payments with Apple Pay, and some were disabling that on the terminal level. So, and that has changed during the pandemic, because people wanted merchant wanted to start accepting payments contactlessly to minimize the risk of the infection. And in Europe, it has already been pretty high, especially in the Eastern Europe, where the technology of terminals has upgraded later during the past couple of decades, and because of that, it already had the support for the contactless built into the terminals.
And right now you're in France, but I think you have plans to move through more of Europe. Do you want to talk just a little bit about your rollout plans?
Correct. Here we are partially dependent on the underlying bank as a service platform to provide us the support, because they have to be able to support all the routing. They have to be able to provide a separate bin range to issue the cards in the given jurisdiction. So right now we are really in the final steps of rolling out in Spain. We already signed the contracts with 2 more bank as a service platforms in other jurisdictions. I don't want to rush the announcement on the podcast, but as soon as we have the news, we'll share that with the public. But so far, just to understand the magnitude of the demand, there have been over 500,000 pre-orders from over 100 countries in the world. And because of that, we'll need to carefully prioritize which markets we go to next.
So in Europe, I mean, in the US, we have PayPal, we have Venmo, we have Square, we have Zelle. What's the landscape for digital wallets feel like in Europe? And what's the play out between people just continuing to use their bank and a bank app and a bank debit card versus using a digital wallet? And just kind of, could you just paint the landscape and update me on who's out there and what the alternatives are?
Right. It would be ridiculous if I would say that there's no competitors in our space, because obviously people have a way to pay, that they can always resort to cash in the worst case scenario. But what we're trying to do, we are trying to serve the new patterns that have emerged, especially due to pandemic, because you can definitely do P2P payments with a lot of platforms. That, as you mentioned, that in the States there are a few. In France, there is, for example, Lydia. In Europe-wide, and especially in Germany, there is PayPal. But as I said, that there is no one sort of household name, and that's what we're aiming to capture. And the very important thing is to actually serve that pattern, because one thing is that you are able to just request money from a person A is able to request money from person B. But another thing is actually requested in a form of sort of business-like invoice. So if I'm a freelancer and I'm doing work for Global ID, I did, let's say, a brochure design, that I'm able to record a short voice command in my WhatsApp Messenger, and I can say, create an invoice for Global ID for brochure design for 200 euros. And our AI on the back would understand that that phrase actually means create a money request, create an invoice. It would create a unique identifier, would understand what the memo of the invoice should be, what the amount, what's the currency, and create a QR code that you can either show to the person or just send a link to pay. There is no platform right now that can service it that fast and that professionally. And we feel that with the coronavirus and the lockdown and the rise of the gig economy, because people are basically stuck at home and some people are working several jobs or several projects, that will be the pattern that will actually be dominating the micro business and the sort of the self-employment landscape.
So the names that come to, okay, thank you. So the names that come to mind for me are Revolut and TransferWise. They have, I believe, both digital wallets. Just talk a little bit more about you're doing, what's the same, what's different, and just your read again on the market there.
So both Revolut and TransferWise that has recently rebranded as Wise, because they actually wanted to go away from their image of actually transfers between different currency to more of a wallet. Yeah, so actually they dropped the transfer part from their name and the logo. So they both were actually targeting the people who were sort of smart, savvy high-tech professionals traveling a lot, needing to use local currencies when they travel. And now in the post-coronavirus time, obviously that niche has shrunk drastically. And in UK right now, they even have fines for travel without a reason. So you can actually be fined for trying to leave the country without proper justification. So because of that, their their scenarios that they were serving were mostly either local transfers, basically from one IBAN account to another, or between the customers of the platform, or predominantly they were targeting the cross currency payments. And our scenario covers both, but more in the sort of the invoicing and the money request scenario, because actually a kid requesting money from their parents is not much different than a freelancer requesting money from the client. It just, one would be called a money request, another would be called an invoice.
Interesting. And so I take it, because you're dealing in France and the next would be Spain, so you're dealing all in euros. Is there a thought about multi-currency, not like so much TransferWise or now Wise and Revolut, but like in the US, for instance, Square's making half its money from people actually buying to put in their wallet crypto, buying Bitcoin, which was amazing to me that it went so quickly from just being sort of a fringe offering to generating a huge amount of interest, that people are looking to save their money in crypto now rather than in a fiat currency. But
absolutely, there was even statistics that people who are giving these relief paychecks, like the 1,400 or like 2,000 in the two payments of 600 and 1,400, that actually over half said that they will invest it, and actually some people that said that they will consider a cryptocurrency. So I think that's a little bit of a tough question, because since we are dependent right now on bank as a service platforms, it means that it's always their compliance that they will have the ultimate say in what we are allowed or not allowed to do. Because of that, we are not flirting with cryptocurrency at this point of time. We have gotten permission earlier to add functionality of buying cryptocurrency, but the selling of the cryptocurrency is a little bit trickier, because when you get cryptocurrency, you need to be able to prove that it's clean, that you didn't get it as a result of money laundering, selling of drugs or weapons. So because of that, it's a little bit tricky subject. And I think that when we get our own platform, which what we aspire to in this year or the next, then I think we will be able to build our own strong compliance department that will be able to solve these kind of problems.
well, so talk about that. So are you folks looking to get your own bank license? And is that the idea, that you'll become a bank in your own right?
Absolutely. So first, we'll go for our own e-money license. It means that while we're still working on the technological platform of bank as a service platform, we would be able to chip away certain pieces and say, okay, guys, you do the custody of funds, but we are taking responsibility for the KYC, for AML, etc. And that would mean that we would be able to save those margins that otherwise would be landing on the account of the bank as a service platform. So the plan going forward is to get our own EMI license first, which is one of the simplest banking license, but that would allow us to actually onboard all residents of the EU. And the next step, and again, here I might be too ambitious, but as a person from banking experience, I know that a lot of banks are hurting right now. A lot of banks that were brick and mortar, that depended on the pedestrian traffic to their offices, that depended on that firm handshake and a beautiful tie and a suit. Right now, they are in a mask, they're keeping the distance, people are not going to the offices. So because of that, I feel that those businesses are hurting, and they're looking for solid partner on the digital customer acquisition front. And I think that we'll either be able to either acquire a bank in the future, or partner with a bank that needs a strong digital partner.
Interesting. And right now you're pushing the ZELF brand. Is there a thought, and again, this is kind of coming from not the Square world over here, but the Stripe world, will ZELF always be a retail brand B2C play, or is there some possibility that you might basically license or allow your ZELF capability to be built into other applications and services?
I think that we will consider that depends on the market in which we'll be launching. Sometimes there are markets where licenses are very strictly regulated, and there is only a limited number of them. And like, for example, we're speaking to partners in United Arab Emirates, and there is only a handful of players, and you have to partner with one of them to actually bring your issuing capabilities to the market. And it can be done in a variety of methods. One, it could be ZELF powered by, and then there is a local brand. But I mean, one should never say never, but we're not planning to become a pure technological player in licensing our technology. So it should always be promoting our brand and building the universal platform.
Okay, and you mentioned right now, I mean, you do WhatsApp, you do straight text messaging. Are there other platforms that you can set up a ZELF account through? Can you do it through Telegram?
Facebook, WhatsApp, Telegram, Viber. We have support of Line, which is a Japanese messenger, and WeChat. We just haven't rolled these two out in Europe because we felt that the number of people using that in Europe is very small, so it would be basically counterproductive to spend the resources on that. But we'll soon be adding the support for Apple Business Chat, which is basically an iMessage that any person with just a vanilla Apple phone would be able to converse with our chatbot without having to install any of the messengers, just straight out of the box, and you're already able to chat with ZELF bot.
Okay. Full disclosure, our investment firm Haryaka is invested in ZELF. Can you just talk a little bit about where you guys are in terms of funding and what's next, and what, in case some of the folks that are listening to us are from the investment community, knowing what the roadmap looks like there?
Yes. First of all, Greg, I really appreciate you being behind us in this, and we really appreciate it. As I always compare the company with the rocket, we do need the fuel to actually to fly and to enter more markets, and I really appreciate your trust and sharing the vision with us. We have announced the round less than 2 weeks ago. This is a pre-seed round of 2 million USD, which was invested into our American company headquartered in Delaware, and that company actually owns a subsidiary in Europe. Our plans are to use that money to actually expand, to enter more jurisdictions. We have a lot of demand from UK, from the States, believe it or not, Philippines, and this is one of the English-speaking countries where the banking is really in a state that leaves much to be desired. So we are planning to expand to more countries in Europe, but we're also aggressively expanding more. But we are really watching our bottom line, meaning that we need to make sure that we see our customers using the card, the utilization, basically the analysis of how people convert from just quickly getting the card to actually quickly topping up, quickly making first transactions. So we're making sure that we're following up with the customer every step of the way.
And has your exposure to MasterCard, has it just been through the bank? Like, what does MasterCard know or think about this, or you've been able to do this all without having to like go and kiss the ring at MasterCard or
actually, we have an amazing relationship with MasterCard, and we have received an exclusive offer from MasterCard that we were told is I would say is one of the best that people have seen on record. So right now we're contemplating whether we want to lock ourselves up to one specific brand, whether we need to diversify. But this was an amazing offer, and MasterCard was very supportive, and this marketing partnership, I think that it's very good. So they're very well aware of what we are doing, that they have supported us in this venture, and right now we're at the point of contemplating signing that exclusive agreement.
Okay, and for your business model, we know that interchange is capped in Europe, so it's very hard to make money on a per transaction basis. Is there a concept of charging a fee per month for the service, or how do people make money for digital accounts? I think that's how Revolut does it, is there's a monthly fee. But
right, we didn't want to go the route of other neobanks when they started out really brave and fast, and they said everything free, and then started to slowly creep up with various fees. Like recently was announced that it's already like the second time that Revolut changes the rules about like which accounts are free and what services they're starting to charge for. What we decided to do, that we said that the basic account will always be free, there will be ability to always top it up for free via IBAN, but the top ups via another card will be paid for. And all those invoices that we talked about, the voice generated invoices, just the invoices that you generate within the interface, we would retain a small percentage. So just like Square and all other vendors that actually sit on the processing of the payments, that's where we'll generate a significantly higher percentage than that compared to the interchange. So for example, if in Europe the interchange is 0.2%, then we are, for example, charging around 1% for the payment remittance of the invoice, which for a lot of vendors or a lot of people who are expecting the payment to be clear is not such a high percentage, but at the same time for us it's 5 times the amount of the interchange. So, and we will be offering the paid accounts to people who will see that, for example, paying a monthly fee and getting certain number of top-ups will be better than just paying 1% of each of those invoices, and they will be getting other features as well.
And would there be a way for people to get, if they have a paycheck, to get their paycheck automatically deposited in? Just
correct. Because in Europe, all you need to do is to provide that IBAN number to your employer. So once you pass the KYC and basically the verification of the account, and your account can hold now more than 150 euros, now you're able to deposit the money into the account. And actually, for the salary clients, the ones where we see the regularly depositing the same payments, will be waiving the monthly fee.
And in the US, we have, well, it's a little notorious, called payday loans, but there's various forms of credit attached. But is that off the roadmap or on the roadmap? How do people in America, everybody's always borrowing against money they don't have, but I don't know if that's the European way. I think Europe's so potentially more responsible than we Americans.
Right. I think that yeah, in Europe, for example, credit cards are not as prevalent as in the States, and it's more the straight loans or installment loans that are more common in Europe. But obviously, we'll have to look at the market practices, and we don't really want to go into like really predatory payday loans business when really people are exploiting the financially non-savvy customers, and basically they end up paying tens and like up to 50% APR. So we want to help customers, for example, like be able to spread if somebody is getting paid monthly, for example, we would be able maybe to with the proper scoring to split into like four weekly payments, and to charge a small fee for that. But it is on the roadmap, but we need to really tread lightly here, because we want to be ethical and at the same time profitable. So that's there is always a fine line in lending.
And just to confirm here, so you guys are really looking to do this all through text messaging. This isn't like an on-ramp to basically downloading a ZELF app, or might there be a ZELF app someday, or will you,
all right,
beautify the text messaging experience?
As you said, full disclosure. First of all, it's not even text messaging, because in our chatbot there are buttons and there is a voice interface. So when you talk about home appliances, where you basically the only thing you have is a microphone, this is the same level of technology where it's interfaceless, and you can just press the voice recording button and record any command, because voice has really ultimate flexibility. You can say, show me the ATM withdrawals for the November of last year, show me all the car related expenses, and the AI on the back will be able to generate all of that for you. So it's not really a question of, or is it text. It's not M-Pesa world. It's light years ahead. But there is an app. We haven't rolled it out. And we're using that app actually to provide more security to the account, because some people who want to start storing their paychecks in the account, they want a little bit more security. We want to have the device pinning. We want to be able to add biometrics to it. That, for example, that you want to confirm payments with Face ID or Touch ID or fingerprint on Android. So we already have all that, but we just wanted to make sure that when the customers get our product, they understand that it's optional, that there is no app required.
Terrific. Okay, I'm gonna start to wrap up now. Are there questions that I haven't asked that you think I should have asked, or things you want people to know about ZELF or this journey, or other recommendations you have to other entrepreneurs either in this space or an adjacent space? We were quite surprised to find you in France and whatnot. I don't mean to be. I've made a few investments in France. But the number of startups we've been able to find in France is few and far between. But they're always my most enjoyable ones to visit.
Agreed. I think I'd call on to some partners worldwide, because there are a lot of banks that there are some bankers who are viewing your podcast, and there are some banks who do not have a digital strategy. Like, for example, my example with France was that there are over 400 banks in France, but fewer than 40 banks have Apple Pay and Google Pay functionality. We're actually one of probably 16 that have Google Pay in France. So it means, for me, this is a litmus test of a digitalization level of a bank. And as I mentioned before, some of the banks, they find themselves between the rock and the hard place right now. So I would actually call on to them to consider partnering with us, to maybe be the bank as a service platform, and to basically work with us and be a part of this journey.
Elliot, I love that shirt you have. That is the most colorful shirt for any.
Thank you. Thank you.
I have. Thank you for the time today, and thank you, folks, for sitting in. It's been amazing learning about ZELF. I mean, I hope you guys can go through the demo. It is the fastest onboarding experience I have seen, and I really appreciate that. It was really schooled me as to what you can do. I think, like Elliot said, it's text messaging, but it's text messaging on steroids with all the buttons and whatnot and the AI. It really is teaching an old dog new tricks. Thank you again today, Elliot, and signing off for our team. Take care.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. Thank you.